Future. All right.
Hello, everybody.
Oh, did you want me to introduce you real quick?
You can.
Okay.
Perfectly fine.
All right. So, hello, instructor friends. This is our training session for Pivot Interactives for Science 111. This is for spring 2021. This is the first semester that we're using it. I'm sure it's slightly new and terrifying, but it's a really cool thing. So we've got Linda Detweiler here from Pivot Interactives to show everybody kind of how it works, what students see, how grading works, all that sort of fun stuff. And I'm just gonna let her go ahead and get started.
Hi, guys. My name is Linda Detweiler. I was a chemistry and physics teacher before I came to Pivot Interactives. And so I've been using Pivot inside of a classroom setting for a few years. And I want to show you guys how to use Pivot. I'm now our customer success manager. So whenever you have questions, you'll probably reach out to me, and that's perfectly fine. We have a wonderful team here with Pivot Interactives, and I'm going to show you how your college is going to use this inside of your courses for the spring. So I just want to show you guys the Pivot site. If you've never been here before, it's pivotinteractives.com. And Pivot's a little bit different than a lot of your online lab services. So if you use something like Gizmo or Labster, those are simulations. But with Pivot, Pivot is real recordings of real labs. So this is essentially the same as being the student who watches the other person do the physical stuff in the lab and takes the recordings. All of these are actually filmed labs, though we do partner with PhET simulations. We do offer some simulations. They are not the majority of our coursework, but we have a variety of materials. To help you, we're going to start off with just logging in. You're going to click login. And you're going to log in with your username and password, or if you've done Google single sign-on, you can do that. And this is what your login page is going to look like. You're going to see this, hello, insert your name here. When you signed up, you probably signed up for a trial. If you haven't signed up for a trial, I'm just going to back out of this really quickly and show you where that trial location is. It says instructor trial. You'll need to fill out this. Please use your institution email. That's your Ivy Tech email. You need to use that Ivy Tech email. I will warn you, this takes a few days in order to get approved. It can take up to a week. So if you need to use this sooner, you need to get it in as soon as possible. So go back, log in. Welcome to your login page. You will probably have 0 out of 0 seats because when you first start off on a trial account, you have no seats added. Now your students will be paying for their own seats. So here's how that looks. When you create a class, we're going to start off by making our classes. We're going to go to the My Classes button. It's up here at the top. And you'll see I have some courses already in here. You can archive classes. So if you decide to reuse Pivot during the summer to archive a class, you just click those 3 dots and then click archive. It's going to ask you, are you sure you want to archive it? You say yes, and poof, the class is gone. And you can archive all your classes. You can also view your archived classes by just clicking the cog and clicking show archive classes. This is a great way to save that student data. Something that's important with Pivot is we do not delete student data at any point. So we encourage you to not delete anything. It's always good to keep that. It lives in the cloud. It's not taking up space on your computer. So you don't need to delete it if you don't want to. To create a class, you're going to click the plus new class button. Now, just to check, Edith, when they're using Canvas, do they have nested courses inside of Canvas?
What do you mean by nested courses?
Is each one of their sections its own course in Canvas, or is there like one big SCIN111 and then there's a bunch of sections inside of it?
They'll be creating what Pivot calls class for each of their individual Canvas sections. So
that's what I was
a bulk side on Canvas.
All right. So then for each one of your individual Canvas courses or individual Canvas sections, you'll need to make a Pivot section. Here's my recommendation so that you don't get them mixed up, titled in the exact same thing. So if it is section 5 of SCIN 111, then that's how you'll title it. Make them match so that you don't get them confused. The number one complaint I see when people are using Canvas is they're trying to find their courses and they're like, I can't remember which class is which. If you title it the exact same thing it is in Canvas, they don't get mixed up. Now, this is the important step. Your students are paying for this, so they need to select student. Students are able to purchase codes from a bookstore and they're able to purchase codes online. The codes online are $10 a student. If they purchase it through your school bookstore, there is a markup. The benefit for students purchasing them through their school bookstore is obviously they get to use their financial aid money. Do note that some of your students may say, oh, well, I don't know how to get into this. They'll need to purchase it. I'm going to show you exactly what that looks like. They just put in a credit card in, and it's done right then and there. The other important thing is please select college. So this is what your screen will look like. This is going to match Canvas title. You're going to select student, and then you're going to select college, and then you click create. And poof, your class is made. Ta-da! Mine is on the next page. So there's that section 5.
Yeah,
I just
so like, I will just interject with a quick question. So can students see the name of the class that you're making?
They will see it twice. They will see it the first time they sign up for the class, and then the only other time they'll see it is if they go into Pivot, if they log on to Pivot, and they actually look at their home screen on Pivot. If they're just using it through Canvas, they will never see the name of the course again.
Okay, I was just wondering in case like an instructor has multiple sections, you know, how much detail should they put in for themselves to be able to figure out which section they're working with and like, but still not confusing students.
I would just copy and paste the title from Canvas. That way, if the students are ever confused, you can tell them it will match exactly what it says in Canvas.
Yeah, that works.
That's always my recommendation.
Yeah, so I'd probably, just in case anybody's watching this later, I'd probably recommend like the course ID in the upper left-hand corner. So it'd be like SCIN111 P1 something something. It has your section and then like your term in there, probably that bit.
Yes, and that's really important because when students sign up for the first time, they will see that, and that's how they can verify that they're in the correct course. So once we've gotten that class made, in order to get students into it, we need to assign them work through Canvas. So we need to find our assignments. Now, it's my understanding that some of your modules have already been made for you. So we're going to find those inside of our community library. This is a little bit different because normally I would start with our Pivot Interactives library. But I want to start with our community library, and then we'll come back to the Pivot Interactives library in case you want to find some extra supplemental activities for your students. So the community library is our library of activities that are made by instructors all over the world. And so these activities can be found in here. These are not made by Pivot Interactives, though it sounds like the person who selected these labs for you has used our Pivot Interactives activities and they've just modified them by adding your course name so they can be found easier.
Yep.
So to find the activities for you guys, I'm going to suggest that you search Ivy Tech in the search bar. Just click search and poof, it's going to pull up all the Ivy Tech activities. You could also search SCIN111 and it should pull it up. Oh, I need to put a space in there. Search. And that's going to pull up your modules for 111. So let's take a look at one of these modules. To preview it, to view it just like the students do, you just click on it. You can either click on the picture or click on preview. I'm going to open it in a new tab. To do that, I hit Control on my Windows keyboard and click on the image, and it's going to pop it up in a new tab. And so this is Module 7, Exploring the Greenhouse Effect. And you'll see we have these introductory videos. This one just shows you how the chamber works. And some of these videos have sound, though none of the sound is spoken word. We do this so that students can understand the setup of a lab, particularly for ones that aren't just take this beaker, put these things in it, stir, because students need to see what they would have done in a laboratory setting. And so we go through, and this is a fairly long video. It shows how this chamber works and why we did it this way. And we're going to introduce the students. They're going to read this text, and it's going to tell them, let's explore temperature changes from different settings. And so you'll see we have that chamber is set up. There is oxygen gas, and we've got a whiteboard, and we're going to look at how those two factors impact the temperature. And so I click play. And we can see how the temperature increases over time. There's a clock placed in there so that students can actually measure the time. Now we also have the ability to change trials. So your students will probably be asked to change the trial at some point. To do that, they're going to click in the bottom left-hand corner. And so now I could look at carbon dioxide on a blackboard and click load and have a completely new setup. And so now we have a blackboard in there. We're going to seal it so that none of the gases escape. Add light and look to see how the temperature changes. What I really like about these is that this allows me to have all of these different trials at home. I'm not having to set this up. I'm not having to clean it up. I'm not having to instruct students on how to use it and worry about the hose is going to come out or what happens to the sensor if they jostle the box too hard. A lot of those cleanup and takedown steps completely eliminated. Also, they're getting real data. This is a real box inside of a real lab. Those were real people. And all of this is giving them the same data that they would have gotten in lab. In this instance, there's nothing that they really would have to do hands-on inside of a lab other than stick the hose in there and seal the box. Otherwise, they would have just been watching for an incredibly long amount of time. And we got what would have been a several-hour activity completed in about 30 seconds. So students tend to like that. You'll also notice inside of some of our videos, we have this tool icon. Students will often be given tools for activities if they're needed. We're not going to give them a ruler in this activity because they don't need a ruler. But they could do a timed option, and this time is calibrated so that they have the correct amount of time. So if I look at this time lapse, it would be correct. But then we're going to ask them to do initial temperature versus final temperature so they can make their measurements. And you'll notice inside of this, if I type in, say the initial temperature was 22.3, the final temperature was, say, 24.7. This is going to auto-calculate their change in temperature. We're going to ask them some questions. And then the students are done. Now you will notice there's no submit button on these activities. That's because the students don't need to submit their work. Their work is always being submitted to Canvas. Their work is updated every 2 seconds. So if I'm typing inside of this box, whenever I click out, you'll notice a little green button, a little green icon will show up, and that tells me that my work is being saved. And for whatever reason, it's not showing me that button right this second, but it is being saved. So let's take a look at what that looks like for the students. I want to assign this to my students now. So I'm going to click, I want to add to my library. This is a very important step because you're pulling these out of the community library. They are not yours yet. You need to add them to your library. When you do, you're going to get this green bar of success that says, yes, you added this activity to your library. So then you're going to go to my library and you'll find that activity. You need to click the 3 dots and then click assign. This is where having those courses named right is going to be really important. You can find that section and then click assign. Now from here, the assignment work is on Canvas, and Edith has typed up a wonderful document for you on how to actually do this. So inside of Canvas, you're going to pull an external tool. and you'll select Pivot from your external tools. And then what it's going to do is it's essentially going to just show you the Pivot assignment page inside of it. And so you will find your course, which should match the course name in Canvas, and then you're going to find the name of the assignment. And when you assign that to the students, that enrolls them in Pivot, and it also tags them to your Canvas course. It's very important that your students do not enroll in Pivot in any other way other than a direct link through Canvas. The reason for that is because when a student enrolls through Pivot through Canvas, that's going to link their Pivot information to their Canvas information so that gradebook syncs. If the students were to go to Pivot and make an account and then come back to Canvas, then the courses will not match up. So it's very, very important that your students only access Pivot through Canvas. I wouldn't even tell them that Pivot has a website. I would simply tell them in order to access the labs, they go through Canvas. Because if they don't, then you can get a linkage problem and the gradebook won't sync. So it's very important that your students do that. So I've assigned something to my class. Let's see what that looks like for the students. I'm gonna go over to that course. And there's that class, there's the assignment that we just had. And now I'm gonna kind of look at what the students will see. So when they click on that assignment for the first time, they're actually going to come to a join link. And this is what they're gonna see the first time. When you assign that through Canvas, when they click on that first assignment, it's going to take them to this page and it's going to prompt them to join the class. This is the important thing I would do with my students during the first week. Have them verify their section name and have them verify your name. This should match what's in their Canvas title, and then this should match your name. If those two don't match, then the student has enrolled in the wrong course. Once they do that, they click confirm. It's going to ask them to sign up for an account. So I'm just going to make an account for my son really quick. He's been my account person forever. And you'll notice that I'm not using a real email. That's because students are not required to use a real email in order to sign up for Pivot. We do encourage that students use their student email. However, they can also click sign in with Google if they have a preferred Google account, and they click sign up. It's going to ask them for class payment. So the cost is $10 if they're paying online, or if they purchase a code from the bookstore will give them a purchase code. It normally starts with PR dash and then a bunch of numbers. This would be a code if they purchase it through the bookstore. I would expect it to be a little bit higher than $10 if they purchase it through the bookstore, or they can purchase it online for $10. There is a drop add bit of information for colleges. If a student drops a course within 2 weeks and they can show that they dropped the course, we do offer a refund for that $10. So if a student enrolls and drops the course within the drop add period for their school where they would be held with no penalty, then they can also get a refund on their Pivot. However, if they were to drop outside of that time, they will not receive a refund. So if it is past your school's with free withdrawal date, the time when they can drop out of course without any cost association or without it showing up on their transcript, then they're fine. But if they wait until after that and they end up inside that withdrawal period where it shows up as a withdrawal on their transcript, they will not receive a refund. So from here, they would click join class and then they would see the assignment. So here's now what that assignment would look like. I'm going to kind of pull up an assignment from another one of my classes. And so once a student has done the assignment, so you'll get a list like this. So I can see that the student worked on the assignment. This was a coral bleaching activity. This isn't one I believe that your school has selected, but you could select it for your students if you wanted to. And you'll get a list of all of your students. So I'll see William, here's a score. It was last changed by the student. I can see the date, and there are 2 ways to grade. I can grade by student, or I can grade by question. You can also grade inside of Canvas. So that's a common question I get about Canvas users is, can I grade inside of Canvas? Yes. However, it does not work with SpeedGrader. Pivot does not pair with SpeedGrader inside of Canvas. but you can do all of your grading inside of Canvas. I prefer when I'm grading in Pivot to use grade by question. Grade by student is grading the entire lab as though it was a lab notebook. So I'm going to select Johnny's lab notebook, grade Johnny's lab notebook. Grab William's lab notebook, grade his lab notebook. I'm doing it one at a time. Grade by question is I grade everybody's question 1 and then everybody's question 2. You can select up to 5 questions at a time to do grade by question. If I do grade by student, I see their entire Pivot activity. So in this one, you get to see the video. I would see their multiple choice answers, all of their stuff. Now, this is also an important thing. If any of your activities have locked sections, in a locked section, students can't continue unless they complete that section. And they have to actually click a button to lock it and continue. And sometimes students will accidentally lock a section. It's not very common, but sometimes they click that. If you want to unlock a section inside of the grade by student response, you can unlock individual sections, or at the top of the page, you can unlock all sections. There's also one other thing that you can do inside of here. You can reset student responses. So again, this is inside of the grade student response tab on the assignment. You can reset the student responses. I do not recommend doing this unless it is absolutely necessary. When you reset the student responses, it deletes all of the information that's there, and it's a non-recoverable action, meaning that if you do this, we cannot get you back that student work. So I do not recommend deleting all of the responses unless it is an absolute last resort. If you find that you need to reset the student responses, I recommend that you download it as a PDF first. You're just going to right click, hit print, and then you want to print to PDF. That way you have a record of those responses, because when you click that reset button, it makes all of that go back. There is no way to undo that. So this is grade by student. You'll notice that you have the option to input grades. So I could change this for whatever reason to 2 out of 3 points and say correct. However, there is a better answer. There's not for this question, but I could just say that. Whenever you give comments inside of an activity, you'll notice that some multiple choice questions will auto grade. You can see their number of submissions. All of these comments go to the students as soon as you click the save button right here at the bottom of the page. So if I click save and close, I end up back on my grading list. I can see that I was the last person to make edits to the assignment, and that student will be able to see those comments instantly. They show up in the exact same location as they do in the grade by student view. When you click grade by student, you're seeing this just like the students do. So if you have a student who has a very particular question about their lab or their data, if you go to grade by student view and you click on that student's work, you will see exactly what they see on their side, including all of their responses. So you would see any typing they've completed, any data tables, all that information. Now, the other one that I think is more efficient for grading is grade by question. As you noticed inside of the grade student responses, you see a lot of extra things that you really don't need to see when you're grading. Things like the lab video or all of the instructions. I don't really need to see the instructions for my own lab if I'm the one grading it. So instead, I do grade by question. In grade by question, you see the entire activity, but kind of in chunks. So I see that there was a video instance in there. I see that there was some multiple choice, a video instance, and maybe I don't want to grade multiple choice. Perhaps I just want to grade the open-ended responses because multiple choice auto grades. I'm just going to put a check mark next to my open-ended responses and click grade questions. And I can select up to 5 questions at a time to do like this. I'll see the question, the answers, and then I will see each of those students' questions for the ones selected. So in this case, I selected questions 4 and 5. So William's questions 4 and 5 are stacked together. You will notice that you can change this. So I'm going to select this question all the way up here at the top, and then I'm going to select this one down at the bottom. When I do that, it stacks them together even though they're from different sections. So whichever 5 you select, up to 5, it's going to put those together. You can select only one question at a time. That's my preferred method. The reason I would select multiple questions is if those questions were pertinent to one another. So maybe I have a hypothesis question, the data that would support the hypothesis, and then an analysis of the data. I would select those 3 questions together so that I could grade them together, but you don't have to. And then to get back to that selection list, you just click the back button in your browser, and poof, you're back at that selection list. You'll also notice that on the right-hand side, you'll see this box. When I put a check mark there, it allows me to type in the box. This just lets me pre-fill everybody's scores. This will only pre-fill scores if no score has been entered in. So maybe I'm grading this open-ended question, and I'm like, wow, everybody so far has gotten all 3 points. I could pre-fill so that everybody gets 3 points, and then I can modify those grades once I go in there. But again, this will not override any scores that you put in. So if you're concerned that, well, I've graded those 10 questions and 7 of them got a 3, but 3 of them didn't, you don't have to worry. This isn't going to change any grades that you've already put in. This only puts in a score if the box is blank. So that's grading. Again, I prefer grade by question. Another thing I should point out really quickly, you do have the ability to anonymously grade inside of here. So if you're interested in just seeing, removing your own bias, you can click anonymously grade. And when you do that, it removes the student names from the assignment details. Now I'm going to go back to that My Classes list because I realized that when I worked at a university, I had grading assistants, and hopefully you do too. So to help you with grading, you're going to go to that course name inside of Pivot, and I want you to click on the title of the course. And this is your course information page. 2 things are really important here. Once you've gotten all of your students enrolled and you're past that drop add period for your course, I highly recommend that you click Accepting New Students to turn this off. This will stop students from being able to make multiple accounts. We see this with Canvas users when students do an assignment inside of Canvas, and then they, for whatever reason, decide to try to do it on their phone. So maybe they've used one laptop, and then in February that laptop dies, and they need to get a new laptop. That new laptop doesn't have their password saved, and now they're trying to get into Pivot, and they don't remember their password. Sometimes students, rather than using the forgot password link, will just make a new account. When that happens inside of Canvas, Canvas can't pull 2 sets of data into one student account. So Canvas will just not pull any, and then the student won't have a grade. So instead, when you stop accepting new students, that will tell them there are no more students being enrolled in this class, and hopefully they will reach out to somebody and get that account information. The other thing that you can do is you can add a grader. So when you add a grader, you just click, type in an email, and poof, that person gets an email that says you've been invited to be a grader for my course. And they accept, and that person will have grading access. Grading access allows somebody to view student work and grade student work, but they cannot assign or delete student work. So this would be wonderful if you have a grader for a class, maybe you have a teaching assistant or a student teacher from the education department, however that works at your university, that would give you that access. If you need to remove somebody for whatever reason, simply click the remove button and then verify it, and that person will instantly lose access. The other thing I want to point out really quick is how to drop students. There are no students enrolled in this class right now, so I'm going to go to a class that has one. So you'll see I have a student enrolled in this course. In order to drop a student for them to get that refund, you need to drop them on your side. So once you get those drop lists, just make sure that you drop the students in the Pivot account. To do that, you just click drop, and poof, the student is gone from the course. This is unlikely, but if for whatever reason you drop a student and they need to be restored to the course, you just click the restore button, and they're right back in the class. That will also save any work associated with that student account. So if this student has already done labs 1, 2, and 3, and I drop them from the class, that work is saved, and you can view any work from a student by just clicking on their name in the drop students list, and you'll see all of their assignments and their scores, and you can grade those assignments still manually. But once you restore them, their work shows up just inside of your normal grading. It would save any work that they had already done. So if you accidentally dropped a student after lab 3 and you restore them, they don't need to redo labs 1, 2, and 3. All of their work is still there. So we've talked about grading. I'd like to show you what our library looks like really quickly, and then we'll talk about editing really quickly. If you're interested in learning more about editing, we do offer a very nice free evening webinar series. And so you can sign up for webinars, including just another introduction to Pivot, all the way to more complex topics such as an entire deep dive on modifying and building interactives. And again, these sessions are completely free for you to attend, and they go into more detail. So we're going to talk about modifying and editing very briefly, but this deep dive is an hour-long session on editing. So if it's something that you're interested in, we have tons of information. But so I'm going to show you our Pivot Interactives library now. These are our curated activities. So these activities are made by our content team. And you'll notice there are some simulations in here, but most of them are actual videos. You can sort by NGSS standards, or you can sort by topic. This is probably how you're going to sort the most. Or you can search by a keyword. You can also look at level of scaffolding. So the level of scaffolding is a little bit more important for colleges, because level of scaffolding is how much additional instruction do we provide inside of an activity. Because this Science 111 class is an introductory science class, I would recommend using some of the scaffolded activities. These scaffolded activities have more direct instruction over content material. They also involve a little bit more instruction on how to use Pivot. So you'll notice this is an egg osmosis activity. This is the scaffolded activity. Inside the scaffolded activity, you'll see things like different questions. There may be sentence starters. Sometimes they're similar questions, but so in this one I've got, they're going to write a hypothesis. This is the scaffolded activity. Here's my non-scaffolded activity. And we're not going to have them write a hypothesis like that. We're just going to have them select their hypothesis. What question are you answering? They're going to make their own hypothesis and defend it later. We're not going to walk them through how to write a hypothesis because they probably already know that information. So maybe I like both of these activities, but I would kind of want a little bit of the scaffolded and a little bit of the non-scaffolded activity. To do that, you can edit the activity. So I can click I want to add to my library. And when I do, I make a copy of these activities. And then inside of my library, I gotta make my green bar go away. All of the activities that I have made copies of, I have edit access to. So to do this, you just click the edit button. I will warn you, this is a fairly slow loading screen. If it takes you up to 20 seconds for it to load, don't panic, you didn't break it. This is our longest loading screen because you have to load all of the information for the lab activity. So from here, I have 100% edit access. I can change the title. Oops. I can add a thumbnail picture. I can change any tags. I can also change the questions. I could reorder the questions. Maybe I want this multiple choice question to show up before this one. I can just click the down arrow and it's going to swap the locations. I could delete it, just click the delete button, and that one's gone. I could change the instructions and make them sound more like what I would say. I can also require a section so that you get that lock button by clicking the require section. Or I can delete it in section entirely by clicking delete section. If you make a mistake, you can refresh the page and it will take you back to your last save point. If you're wanting to save as you work, just click the save button at the bottom. Also, you have the ability to add sections. So you can add your own section. I'm going to put section 3 down here. And within any section, you can add your own components. You have the option to add notes and instructions, data tables and graphs, questions. You can take video instances from our catalog. So perhaps I found 2 different labs and I want to merge them together. I would just copy and paste the questions from one lab into the next. And I would select a video instance and move it over. When you do that, it's going to show you our entire list of all of our video instances. For this, I do recommend that when you look at the video instance, make sure that you make note of the name so that you can copy and paste it easier. The other thing you can do that I think is really neat is you can add your own video uploads. We see this a lot in our physics activities. We also see this sometimes with home biology and chemistry activities. The students will do something at home and they can take a video of it and then analyze it inside of our tools. With this, the video needs to be under 50 megabytes, which is about 30 seconds of a video. And what they'll see is this black screen that allows them to configure their video. If you click the tools, there is a configuration button. And this allows us to set a calibrated length. So I'm going to say that that length of the words is 10 centimeters. And now when I use the ruler, you'll notice that that length shows up to be 10 centimeters. Students have access to a ruler, as many stopwatches as their heart desires, 2D grid space in case they need 2 rulers, and a 360-degree protractor that can be turned and placed on a point. So I can put it there and turn it however I want. The last thing that you can add inside of these activities is you can embed an iframe. And an iframe is one of our most powerful tools because it allows you to embed anything that is not password locked for a URL. So perhaps you have a YouTube video that you really like and you want them to watch it before they start on the activity, you can embed the YouTube video. Or maybe you found a reading article that they need to read, or an open source section of textbook. Anything that is not behind a password protected URL is typically going to be able to be embedded. The only time that we don't see that is when a site specifically places a embedment lock on their URL. It's fairly rare. So if you have an instance where it doesn't work, feel free to give us a call or send us an email and we'll help you out. If you ever have questions about how to use Pivot, there are 2 things that you can do. One, you can send me an email. My email is linda.detweiler, that's DETWILER, @pivotinteractives.com. Or on any page inside of Pivot, you'll see this smiling blue chat. If you click on it, that takes you to our chat team. And so these actually come directly to us. That's Peter up at the front. That's one of our founders. That's Fran behind him. That's Trevor Register in the back there. These aren't going to just some random call center. They come to our Pivot Interactives team. So if you ever have questions, feel free to reach out and we would be glad to answer them. And that's pretty much all my content.
Cool. Well, I couldn't think of anything else to ask on behalf of everybody. But yeah, so we'll go ahead and get this recording shared out with everyone. I'll probably post a link to it in the instructor guide. So if any instructors do have questions, if it's related to the content, I would say go ahead and reach out to Sarah, the course mentor. But if you're having any trouble either with the integration or with Pivot Interactives itself, you can probably reach out to me, Adita. My contact info is in the instructor org also. And then if it's something I can't figure out, I'll probably reach out to Linda.
There you go.
So thank you, Linda, so much for sharing all this with us.
Thank you.